They once warned that a day would come when the enemies of Africa would reach such a state of desperation that they would attempt anything, fabricating documents, stamping seals, inventing so-called laws, all with the single aim of breaking the spirit of a free man. That day has now arrived, and it arrives bearing your name, Judge Thomas. You call it an arrest warrant. I call it nothing more than a page soaked in arrogance, written with hypocrisy, and signed by a trembling hand hiding behind a robe. You and those who surround you believe that because you have built courts with polished marble, because you have filled shelves with your volumes of law, because you have turned justice into a performance staged in your language, you can order the sons and daughters of Africa as if they were cattle. You imagine your ink can silence my voice, that your signature can bind my spirit, that your summons can bend the will of our people. You are wrong, Judge Thomas. You have always been wrong. And history itself will prove you wrong again. So let me speak directly to you, without hesitation, without disguise. I am not the type of man who hides behind advisors. I do not whisper through lawyers. I do not polish my words to please an audience that waits to applaud. My voice is mine alone, but it carries the weight of millions who walk this path with me. You sign a piece of paper and believe it will bend my back, force my head down, push me into chains. You miscalculated. You misjudged the man you are dealing with. You imagined I would tremble. Tell me, Judge Thomas, where do you think fear lives in me? Fear belongs to those who clutch power they never earned. Fear belongs to those who were placed on thrones built on the backs of the poor. Fear belongs to those who stand on foundations not built by their own sweat. But I was not handed responsibility, I seized it. I was not given leadership. I accepted the call when my people cried out for protection. Fear is a luxury for men who have never stared death in the eye. I am not one of those men. Do you believe that someone who faced heavily armed forces trained and supported by the very powers claiming to uphold justice, will tremble before a page carrying your name? Do you believe that a man who has walked through villages left empty by war, who has looked into the eyes of mothers holding lifeless children, who has stood at the graves of comrades whose only act was defending their land, do you believe such a man will bow to your warrant? You do not insult me alone. You insult the very definition of courage. I have stood before armored vehicles, Judge Thomas. I have heard weapons rattling while pointed at my chest. I have walked through clouds of dust left by explosions. I have felt the silence after the storm of battle, the silence where one counts the faces that remain and feels the unbearable weight of those who are gone. And in that silence, I did not feel fear. I felt duty. I felt rage against injustice. I felt the unshakable truth that if I did not stand, no one else would. Judge Thomas, I am not the product of your system. Your world is one of suits and conference rooms, of whispers in corridors, of secret agreements signed over wine and cigars. That world has shaped men who have never fetched water from a river, who have never planted seeds in dry soil, who have never faced the choice between feeding themselves or feeding their child. I am not one of those men. I am forged in the dust, in sweat, in hardship. My education was the hunger of my people. My diploma was the liberation of my homeland. My credentials are the scars etched on my hands, the endurance in my heart, and the determination of my spirit. I am not the product of your universities. You believe your schools create leaders, but they create servants polished to look like masters. They quote your philosophers, yet cannot recall the names of the elders who preserved their villages through storms. Yes, I have read your books, but I have also read the skies when the rains were late. I have read the eyes of soldiers returning from the battlefield. I have read the silent questions in the hearts of my people when they wondered if the struggle was worth the cost. Your institutions cannot teach this. Your degrees cannot measure it. I am not the pet of your embassies. I do not travel to foreign capitals to kneel in gilded halls or to smile for cameras while surrendering the lifeblood of my nation. I do not need aid when your aid is only a leash. I do not need applause when your applause is reserved for obedience. You cannot tempt me with invitations or promises. You cannot isolate me with threats, for a man who walks with his people is never alone. I am the son of a people who learned long ago that the law of the oppressor is nothing more than a chain polished to look like gold. You call it law, we call it control. You call it justice, we call it domination. We know this language well. We knew it when colonial rulers issued decrees that stole our land. We knew it when your courts punished us for speaking our languages, for gathering in groups, for daring to dream of freedom. You think you have changed because the chains are now written into contracts, because the whips are now called economic measures, because the prisons are now political pressures. But the essence remains the same, Judge Thomas. The same hand gripping the chain, the same voice issuing the command, the same arrogance imagining it can define the boundaries of our freedom. Do you know why your warrant does not frighten me? Because I know it is not about justice. It is about reminding us of the place you think we belong beneath you, obedient to you, thankful for crumbs. That place no longer exists, not for me, not for Africa. We have burned it. We have torn it from the map of destiny. And if you attempt to rebuild it with your courts, your rulings, your threats, we will burn it again. You believe that because you can imprison a body, you can imprison a mind. But you cannot cage a spirit that has tasted freedom. You cannot bind the people who have seen the face of their oppressor. I have seen it, Judge Thomas. My people have seen it. And once seen, it cannot be unseen. Never again will we willingly step into the hands that hold chains. So yes, you may issue your warrant. You may broadcast it to the world. You may parade it as if it were victory. But to me, it is nothing more than another link in the long chain of arrogance. And I was born to break chains. You sit in your court with your robes, your books, your cameras, pretending to hold power in your hands. But what you hold is illusion. The law you claim to defend is nothing but a tool of empire. The empire that exploited Africa for centuries and now pretends to be a guardian of morality. You are not a judge. You are an actor on a collapsing stage, performing for an audience that has stopped clapping, unaware that the lights have already gone out. You call me criminal because I do not bow. You call me dangerous because I speak the language of freedom. You call me a threat because I refuse to let my people be trampled. But the truth is clear. It is you who are afraid. Afraid that the fire rising in Burkina Faso will spread to Mali, to Niger, to Congo, to South Africa, to every corner of this continent, until your courts are nothing but abandoned buildings covered in dust. One day, your warrants will be laughed at by children who know their history. They will be dismissed by leaders who owe you nothing, by nations that have cut the final string of dependence. You may imagine law as a weapon, but you aimed it at the wrong target. Your law does not work in our markets. Your law does not drink from our rivers. Your law has no place under our sun. When you write my name on your paper, it carries no weight here. It is a foreign tongue trying to command a language it cannot pronounce. Understand this, Judge Thomas. Power does not reside in the ink you spill. It resides in the people who refuse to obey. And here in Africa, that moment has already arrived. You speak, Judge Thomas, as if justice were confined to marble walls, to wigs and rituals borrowed from another age. But here, justice walks barefoot. It feels the earth beneath its feet, it looks its people in the eye, and it speaks truth without costume or disguise. Our justice does not need to hide behind traditions stolen from another land or another century. Our justice breathes in the dust of villages, in the sweat of farmers, in the resilience of mothers, in the defiance of the youth. Real justice, the one you cannot comprehend, lives in the hands of the farmer who refuses to surrender his land to a foreign corporation. That farmer has never attended your universities. He has no framed degree upon his wall. He cannot cite your philosophers or recite the words of your legal scholars, but he holds knowledge infinitely greater. He knows that land is life. To sell it is to sell the breath of his children, the future of his community, the memory of his ancestors. That truth cannot be bribed. It cannot be threatened. It cannot be drowned in endless legal jargon. That farmer, with nothing but a hoe in his hands, stands as a greater defender of justice than all your courts combined. And when you come with contracts and promises of quick wealth, he will turn you away with the same words his fathers repeated before him. This land is not mine to sell. It belongs to those who come after me. That is justice, Judge Thomas. And no courtroom on earth has the authority to prosecute it. Justice is also in the fists of the young man who refuses to wear the uniform of an oppressor. He is not a soldier trained in your academies, but he is a warrior in spirit. He knows that to wear your uniform is to carry the flag of his own submission. He knows that your wars are not his wars, your enemies are not his enemies, and your victories will never be his victories. And so when you try to conscript him, lure him with pay, promise him a seat at your table, he will look directly into your eyes and declare, I will fight, but not for you. I will fight for my people. I will fight for my land. I will fight for the right to wake tomorrow free. That defiance is justice, Judge Thomas, and your papers cannot erase it. Justice is in the voice of the mother who tells her child that he was born free and will die free. She did not read this in a law book. She does not require a constitution to validate her words. She carries this truth in her heart, in her bones, in the stories her grandmother whispered under the moonlight. This mother has seen soldiers march through her village. She has felt the hunger of famine. She has endured the cold eyes of men who came to seize what was not theirs. And yet, through it all, she preserved that one unbreakable truth, that her child belongs to no master, to no court, to no empire. When she tells her child, "You are free," she writes a law greater than any you have passed, a law not written on paper, but written in the soul, enforced not by police, but by the unyielding will of a people. That is the justice you cannot touch, Judge Thomas. That is the justice no warrant can change. You can send 1,000 soldiers. You can issue 1,000 papers. You can broadcast 1,000 threats. None of it matters. Because the justice we speak of is not a man, not a building, not a government. It is a living spirit passed from one generation to the next, untouched by your decrees. This justice will outlive your court, your empire, your name. Long after your courtroom is dust, long after your empire is a forgotten chapter, long after your name has faded except as a cautionary tale, our justice will still be here. It will live in the callous hands of farmers planting in the soil their ancestors defended. It will shine in the eyes of children walking to school without fear. It will echo in the songs of old women in the markets, singing about victory over those who once carried chains. And here lies the paradox, Judge Thomas. The more you attempt to destroy this justice, the stronger it becomes. Each time you arrest a leader, another rises. Each time you silence a voice, hundreds speak louder. Each time you burn a village, the survivors rebuild it with stronger walls. You cannot kill what you cannot see, and you cannot see the roots of this justice because they run too deep through the blood of martyrs, through the sweat of workers, through the dreams of the young. Your justice is fragile, Judge Thomas, because it depends on obedience. Ours is indestructible because it depends on defiance. Yours requires the fear of punishment. Ours requires only the memory of oppression. Yours is guarded by police. Ours is guarded by the people themselves. Yours can vanish with the stroke of a pen. Ours can only vanish if we forget who we are. And that, Judge Thomas, will never happen again. So keep your papers, keep your courts, keep your titles and robes. We will keep our land, our dignity, and our freedom. And when your court collapses under the weight of its own falsehoods, do not expect us to mourn. We will not send flowers to your funeral. We will not write tributes to your memory. Instead, we will dance not because we celebrate the fall of a man, but because we celebrate the triumph of a truth you could never grasp. And in that celebration, your name will not be remembered. Your warrant will not be remembered. You will be a mere footnote, a forgotten chapter in the story of a people who refuse to kneel. The names remembered will be those of the farmers, the youth, the mothers, the ordinary Africans who stood taller than your court, who spoke louder than your gavel, who carried justice not in their pockets, but in their souls. This is why you will fail. Not because I am strong, but because my people are stronger than your entire system. Not because I am fearless, but because fear has no soil left to grow in Africa. Not because I am a leader, but because I am one among millions who have awoken to the truth that we owe you nothing, not our obedience, not our respect, not even our attention. You are an echo of a past already buried, and we will not dig it up for your amusement. So frame your paper, Judge Thomas. Hang it in your office. Show it proudly to your colleagues. But remember this, while you admire your own signature, Africa is moving, Africa is building, Africa is rising. And when you finally glance out of your window and realize the world has changed without you, only then will you understand the truth. I am telling you now, your court is not the center of the world, and your law is not the measure of justice. Justice here does not belong to you, it never has, and it never will. You may think, Judge Thomas, that this story is about me, but it is not. You may believe that by placing my name on your paper, you are striking the heart of a movement. You are mistaken. You are not confronting one man, you are confronting a tide. And tides do not negotiate with the rocks that try to block their path. They break them, they erode them, they sweep them away. You sit in your chambers convinced you are the architect of order, but you are not an architect, you are an instrument. A mouthpiece for powers too hesitant to reveal their own faces. You sign their papers, you echo their decrees, you wrap their ambitions in the language of law and justice. But without their whispers, without their hidden hands guiding your pen, you are nothing more than a man in a robe, holding a hammer, pretending it is a sword. And to those handlers, the embassies, the boardrooms, the intelligence offices. I say this clearly. Africa is not your laboratory. We are not your extraction site. We are not your testing ground. You cannot continue to treat this continent as your chessboard, moving pieces to your liking, removing leaders who defy you, installing puppets who bow in your presence. You cannot disguise exploitation behind acronyms, development projects, or court rulings. We see you. Every African who has watched their resources vanish while foreign companies grow fat sees you. Every community displaced by your mining project sees you. Every child forced to drink from a poisoned river sees you. And let me be clear, Africa will not forgive. You cling to the illusion that history is on your side, that your structures will last forever. But history is not written in your courtrooms. History is written in the sweat and struggle of people who refuse to surrender. And history has already turned against you. Every move you make now only fuels the fire you fear. Your warrant has become a banner of resistance. Your threats have become rallying cries. Your name, Judge Thomas, has become a symbol not of justice, but of the arrogance of those who believe they can police the free. Your strategy has failed. You have not weakened Africa. You have exposed yourself. Here is my final word to you and to those you serve. We will not come to your court, but your court will one day come to ours. And when that day arrives, there will be no wigs, no robes, no rituals. Only truth, unpolished and undeniable, the truth of your actions, and the judgment of a people who have risen beyond your reach. And when that day comes, Judge Thomas, do not ask for mercy, you gave none. Do not ask for understanding, you earned none. And do not expect your titles to protect you. They will fall away, and you will stand exposed before the verdict of history. And history has already spoken. You have lost. You have started something you cannot finish. And in the pages of history, when future generations read of this moment, they will not remember your warrant. They will not remember your court. They will remember that an African stood tall, looked empire in the eye, and said no more. And from that moment, the world was never the same again. So keep your papers, keep your robes, keep the relics of your dying system. They mean nothing here. We have no use for laws written without us in mind, no use for judgments carved before we ever spoke a word in your language. You hold them as treasures, but to us they are polished shackles, golden cages, meant to make prisoners forget their captivity. Justice here does not wear wigs. Justice here does not hide behind costumes of empire. Justice here stands in the open fields, walks the crowded markets, sits with mothers at night, sings with children in the morning. Justice here has no disguise, no foreign accent, no leash. Justice here is ours, and it will remain ours forever. Judge Thomas, the tide you fear has already risen. You cannot stop it, you cannot bribe it, you cannot silence it. Africa has awakened, and no warrant, no decree, no seal, no signature can put it back to sleep. We are here, we are awake, and we will never bow again.